Oh, no. Probably live out of the field, so they've got a quite office state. Rates are $500 a month, $260.
There you go, friends. We all good?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Take no sides. Take no sides.
Rightio. Oh, can I take you out of that seat, Frank? Because I'm going to put the computer there. Sorry.
Been replaced by technology.
Oh, that's scarily too true, isn't it?
At least there's no AI candidates.
Right, it's working.
It's the AI candidates.
Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming to the Meet Candidates Forum. Got technology working, so it's been live streamed now. I'm Mary Murdoch. I am elected unopposed onto the community board here with Tane Hodges, who's going to be my helper this afternoon. The format for the afternoon is we're going to listen to the 5 mural candidates first up. They've been given 3 questions that they could prepare for, and we'll do 1 question they'll each answer, 2nd question they'll each answer, and then the 3rd question. And then after that, there will be some time for you to ask questions of those mural candidates. If we need it, we'll have a short break after that, and then we will listen to our 6 councillors. So without further ado, I presume you all know evacuation things, go outside, toilets are in there, standard stuff. So we're going to do this in alphabetical order. So Scott, come on up. Actually, can I get all the mayoral candidates come up and I might just introduce you. Might be a good idea. So if you could just sit in order. So Scott, Ash, next one is Robin, Elizabeth, and Karen. Scott, do you want to stand for yours or sit? You can choose. Okay.
Big draft coming through. Not the draft.
Okay. So the first question we're asking of our mayoral candidates is, first of all, Scott, if you could introduce yourself, and then the first question is, what are your top 3 priorities for our district over the next 3 years, and how do you plan to achieve them?
Good afternoon, Twizel.
Good afternoon.
I don't think any of you need any. You probably know, everyone knows who I am. Does anybody not know me in Twizel? Okay, I'll be very brief. Long-term resident of Twizel, been here 29 years. My wife Diane is sitting over there on my left. My other daughter Sarah is sitting there, and I have another elder daughter Hannah. We came from Twizel in 1996, came up as an electrical contractor, and still run my own business to this day. Had 2 daughters, Hannah and Sarah. They both went right through the schooling here in Twizel. We've been involved in everything from woe to go, which you'd expect when you bring kids up through the schooling system. They did all their schooling in Twizel Area School, and then went on to uni and got their degrees. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So I'm very much an advocate for Twizel Area School and keeping your children here in Twizel to go to our local school. So I've just got to say that. So, all right, top 3 priorities. Now, again, for those of you that don't know, I've been on council for 3 years. I campaigned on the basis of unsustainable rates rises, amongst other things, 3 years ago. Going into council, it was very much a learning curve. And I learned very quickly that we have a bureaucratic machine that is in place, and there's not a lot of room for change within the monster of council. I also learned that having good ideas is sometimes not that easy to implement. And the reality is when you go into council, you become part of that machine and everything's very structured and very organised. It's quite often very hard to bring your ideas forward, and in some respects you become very disillusioned with bureaucracy as it exists. You realise that the CEO and the managers have a lot of say and a lot of sway, and as at a governance level, we can only act in that role. We cannot get involved in the actual everyday runnings of council, and we're told very quickly if we're overstepping the mark. And as a new greenhorn into council, along with some of my fellow councillors, which are sitting over here to my left from Fairlie, thanks for coming, guys. We learned pretty quick that we would get told off if we opened our mouths when we shouldn't have. And me being me, I opened my mouth and I got told off. So that's just the way it is. I better keep moving because I haven't got much time, have I?
It's only the first question you had to answer.
Okay.
3 priorities.
Okay, right.
Excuse me, Mary, is that back door open there? It's quite a draft.
Carry on, Scott.
Okay, the first priority is council needs to improve its relationship between the community and council itself. Now, in the last while, I've been obviously down in Fairlie doing a fair bit of campaigning down there, and there's a big voting base. There's a bigger voting base in Fairlie than what there is in Twizel, believe it or not, but there is. But the complaints are the same from one end of the district to the other. We've got people complaining that council doesn't get back to us. We send emails, there's no response. We ring up, we don't get the answers that we want. It's the same in Albury as it is here in Twizel. People are complaining, and I can attest to that. And I've had plenty of people on what I say that side of the hill chewing on my ear about all sorts of things. Fairlie and Twizel are obviously very different communities in the way we're made up, but at the end of the day, we're all the same and we all have very similar complaints. And one of the improvements that we need to make as a council and also as a mayor is we need to make sure that we're getting back to people. We need to make sure that we're communicating adequately. Am I up? Sorry?
No, 30 seconds.
And we need to improve overall communication so we can rebuild and restore trust in council, because at the moment people are pretty grumpy. Okay, next priority, rates affordability. We've had the last 2 annual plans. I did not vote for your rates rises, and I got a little bit offside with some of my peers over that, but I didn't vote for it because I felt they're unsustainable, and I said that 3 years ago, and I'll still say it, that we should be looking to drive our rates down. How do we do that? Well, one of the things we need to evaluate internally in council, and again, this is a management issue, so we've got to be careful that we don't overstep the mark, but we've got to be looking at some of those overspends. And if we look in the council minutes, there are a lot of overspends that come through, and they're all there for you guys to look at. We've got to look at some of the budgets, and we've got to look at some of the operations, and we've got to ask the question, is there a better way of doing this? There's a lot of administration processes in council that we'd have to ask the question, can we be job sharing with another council? And this is something that we've got to have an open and honest conversation about, because in Fairlie we've got 56 odd staff or thereabouts, whatever it is, and we only service a population of 5,500 people. So we've got to be asking ourselves, do we need the number of staff that we have, and can we be job sharing? Can we reduce some of that overhead burden that we've got? Because council has a revenue stream of approximately $30 million per annum, and out of that, there seems to be running at a deficit year in, year out, and we've run at a deficit for the last 3 years. We've got to get on top of the deficit. We've got to get back to a balanced budget. If we don't get back to a balanced budget, we're going to keep digging ourselves into a bigger hole. We've currently got a debt loading of around $50 million or just over. 25 million of that is internal debt, which is what we call the hidden debt that nobody really knows much about. And then we've got the external debt, which is around 23.4 million. Currently, you're paying around 1.6 million in interest on both the internal and the external debt, and we need to be getting on top of that. We need greater financial oversight, and I'm just starting to lead into question number 3.
Well done.
And we haven't had the financial oversight that we would have liked. There was once a finance committee. It was disestablished at the beginning of our triennium. I won't go into the reasons why, but the finance committee was disestablished as councillors. We did not get the financial oversight that we should have got. We asked for council to give us a rolling every 6 months review of where our internal debt was at, because that was something that as councillors we were asking for. It took us 2 years before we could get that into the council minutes. If you pick up the council minutes now, when you do a finance report, you will see that it shows exactly where our internal debt is. And again, that was the hidden debt that nobody really knows much about. But we need to be looking at how we can get on top of that. If we're looking to raise revenue outside of our current ratepayer base, we need to be looking at our economic arm of council. So within council, we have Bukaki Airport, we have a forestry division, and we have a commercial property division. We've got to be looking at those a little bit harder than what we have been. Councillor Fisher up here, he's on the forestry board. He's done, and Councillor Gurman done a really good job with forestry, and forestry is doing quite well. But from an airport perspective and the commercial properties perspective, not so well. And I've always been a bit grumpy about the commercial property sector, because I said we're not a charity. We're not there to lease out pieces of land at charitable rates. And I won't go into any more detail on that, but we need to be taking a bit more of an in-depth look at that, because there's some room for improvement on it. If we want to look at revenue, again, freedom camping and toilets. We all know that public toilets cost us $500,000 a year or thereabouts to clean. Well, we've taken some action to improve that. You're going to end up with a fence up there at Pukaki and a wee pay booth. It may not be the best idea for getting people to pay for toilet use, but we've got to be doing something. It's a start. Freedom camping, there's no such thing as freedom camping, because at the end of the day, it's costing you people the ratepayer for those freedom campers to be here. So we've got to have some change. So within the scope of the last 6 to 12 months, the staff have been working on a reserve management plan. A reserve management plan is something that we have to have by legislation for all our green spaces in the Mackenzie. So part of that, which was introduced into also our fees and charges, there will be an overnight fee on our green spaces where we have freedom camping. So the role of the freedom camping ambassadors will be out there to clip the ticket for those people that are staying. So classic example, Pines up here, when it gets really busy, there's 100 camper vans a night. Well, we should be generating $1,000 a night revenue off that. How much time we got? It's Sword On Station. So you would give me a better idea of how many people are at Sword On, but there's always a heap there. So those are the two key areas that we need to be hand out unashamedly, saying you need to give us some money, because we actually need the money, because we're only a small population base, and we're allowing you to come and see our wonderful environment. We need to have some improvement there. Right, what's the next question?
Oh, you've done the first three.
I've done the first three.
Yes.
Okay.
You can sit down.
I can sit down. Oh, okay. All right, I was only just getting started.
Oh, you can. So there will be Q&A after this, and Scott will be speaking again as a councillor. So I'd like to introduce you now to Ash Jackson from Fairley. So Ash, you introduce yourself first, and once you start asking the questions, and we'll do the road, we'll start the time. Do you want all the questions? Yeah.
Hello everyone. Let me know if you want me to speak up. I'm quite a quiet talker, so if you can't hear me, just tell me. So firstly, I do want to thank everyone for coming out today and taking time out of your weekend to come and meet us all. It truly is appreciated. So I grew up in a small town where values were very simple. You don't wait for opportunity, you create them. I started working on my career early in my life, and I built it step by step into what is now an international design and construction business. Through that business, I've helped deliver more than 4,000 projects, from small local jobs worth a few $1,000s, right through to developments worth over 100 mil. Along the way, I've had the privilege of shadowing and working alongside some of the biggest CEOs across New Zealand and Australia. I've learned from their leadership, and I've brought into my scope. And when I've seen businesses struggling, I've stepped in and helped them. I've taken companies that have never turned a profit and aligning them for long-term success. To back all that practical experience, I've invested in my education. I hold degrees and post-grad certs in management, marketing, construction, property development, and investment. These have taught me how to manage large budgets responsibly, how to plan for growth, and how to unlock housing opportunities that can serve communities. I chose to make this my home here in Mackenzie because I believe in this place. I believe in our people, our landscapes, and our future. But what I've heard again and again from not just you guys in Twizel, but across the district, is that the basics are not being delivered. People want safe, reliable water, infrastructure that keeps pace with the growth that we're currently experiencing, a community hub and services that put locals first, not just visitors. That's why I've spent months now poring over budgets, agendas, and every single council report I could get my hands on. It's been a bit of a mammoth task, to be honest. So when I speak about solutions, it's not just theory, it's because I've done my homework and I know what can be achieved. And because of this, I won't make promises I cannot keep. Yes, I am young. I am the youngest one standing. I'm 32, for anyone that's curious to know that. But I see it as one of my greatest strengths. I bring energy and drive that this role demands, and I'm not only focused on the next 3 years, I want Mackenzie set up to be sustainable for the next decade. And I'm already asking, what does our district look like in 100 years and for the future generations to come? That's the scale of leadership I believe this community deserves. Because this election is not just about change anymore, is it? It's about direction. Change on its own does not guarantee progress. We've all seen what happens when councils chase change without a plan. Rates rise, debts grow, and trust erodes. What matters now is the direction we choose. Do we keep stumbling forward with short-term fixes, or do we set a new course that is focused, balanced, and sustainable? I see Mackenzie where families can put down roots without being priced out, where tourism strengthens our economy without draining the local ratepayers, and where council decisions are made openly with community, not behind closed doors. If I am elected, I will bring forward leadership with purpose, grounded in common sense, financial discipline, and a council that puts people first. Together, we can steer Mackenzie back to basics and back in balance, and forward into a future where community thrives, our environment is respected, and our council truly serves the people it represents. Thank you. Now you want all 3 questions?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first question, what is the top 3 priorities for our district over the next 3 years, and how do we plan to achieve them? So my top 3 priorities, if I'm elected, they are first, getting back to basics. We need to make sure the water, the roads, and our core infrastructure is reliable and affordable. This means tackling the government's new water reform heads on, pushing for safe drinking water without crippling our households, and making sure our roads and services aren't neglected. Second, we need to bring council back in balance with transparent finances, clear decision making, and making sure visitors pay their fair share for the costs that they are creating. That means advocating for fair tourism levies, pushing for government funding. Some of the funds are honestly already on the table. We just need to push for it a bit harder. And applying user pays where appropriate, so ratepayers aren't left carrying the whole load. Third is transparency and trust. Too many people tell me that they don't even bother submitting in consultation because they think council will do whatever it wants to do anyway. That needs to happen, and that needs to change, and I want to flip that way of how it works currently. I'll make consultations simpler, hold meetings at accessible times, not during the day when we're all working. We can do some after hours, I think. And we want to bring in, I would like to bring in some experienced locals. We do have a lot of people in our community who are retired professionals who have already worked with council on different things. And currently they're not part of the conversation, and I think that they should be. These aren't just talking points, of course, they are actions. They focus on essentials, they're going to keep the costs fair, and they open council back up to its people. And I believe that's how we're going to turn things around for Mackenzie. Number 2 was how will you address the challenges of housing affordability and unsustainable rates rises? Housing and rates are 2 of the biggest pain points that I hear when I talk to everyone about around town and in different areas. On housing, the reality is council Council doesn't build houses. However, we do set the rules and infrastructure to make building those houses possible. I'll work to cut the red tape in the district plan, support the innovative options like smaller homes and relocatables, and review our zoning so it's a fairer balance between short-term accommodation, staff housing and permanent residential homes. That way we can keep space for workers and locals while still supporting tourism. And I'll actively work alongside private developers and community housing providers to unlock new supply and make projects feasible, because we need all parts of the sector at this table. On rates, the truth is we can't keep loading costs onto 5,500 residents while servicing the needs of millions of visitors. It just does not work. My plan is to push hard for alternative funding, like I said, including the streams government already has made available, but also advocate for Mackenzie to get our fair share. That means tourism levies central government support and user pay systems where fair. At the same time, I bring discipline to council spending, focusing only what's on essential and holding a firm line that rates should not rise really beyond inflation plus 1%, unless there is a clear unavoidable case. If there was ever a cost that would push rates above that threshold, I want it brought to the communities before it happens. That means transparency, plain English explanations, and genuine feedback. So together we can explore solutions instead of ratepayers getting surprise bills in the post with no understanding of why. At the heart of both housing and rates is the same principle I spoke about earlier, fairness. Everyone deserves a fair shot at living here affordably, and ratepayers deserve protection from constant hikes. That is the balance that I am fighting for. Now, the third question was, can you share an example of a difficult decision you have made in public service and what you learned from that experience? So back many moons ago, when I was voted in and elected as actually a student president of the University of Waikato, so we represented over 13,000 students. One of my roles was to sit on an advisory panel and deal with disciplinary cases and grade reviews. One case that I'll never forget was a woman. She was the same age as me. She had failed her course. She asked for her grades to be overturned because of her personal circumstances she faced during the semester. The rest of the panel at the time felt strongly about giving her the benefit of the doubt, but when it came to me, I said no. Overturning her results would undermine the integrity of the course, undervalue the effort that every other student had pushed through, and set a precedent where everyone with a hard semester could contest their grades. Instead, I put forward a constructive alternative, that this situation revealed a gap in student support and that we needed to introduce free counselling and one-on-one mentoring for students struggling with personal challenges. This idea was taken on board and implemented. What I learned from that experience is that leadership isn't about following the room or choosing the easy answer. It's about protecting fairness, standing firm where the pressure wants me to bend, and still finding ways to show compassion through solutions that last. It taught me that tough decisions are never just about the moment in front of you. They're about the standard that you set for the future. And the trust people the trust that people place in you to hold that line. And that's exactly the approach that I would like to bring to Mackenzie. Fair, firm, and forward thinking. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along, and thank you to Mary here for organising this event this afternoon. I am the only district-born candidate. I was born in Fairlie, and I was brought up at Burks Pass and Ashwood Flat. My father was a farmer, and I know the district well. I know its history very well through pure longevity, and I've worked on a lot of the stations and farms in the district when I was fencing. So I took up first after leaving school to make a lot of money to go off and train as a commercial pilot. I have been involved in many businesses as an entrepreneur, mostly startup businesses. It's in excess of 40 now. Not all have been successful, but I've never gone bust. And I would never say I won't, because you just never know when the tide might turn the other way. Leadership, folks, is not about sitting around the campfire and singing Kumbaya. It is about personal courage, integrity, and initiative. That's what it's all about. Honesty plays a very big part in leadership. Now, the thing that you also learn by being an entrepreneur is that it all starts out with initiative. And you have to put together a team that you hope will be good to drive your business in the direction that you want to lead it. Now, sometimes you make mistakes. I've made mistakes. When mistakes are made, you have to correct them. And this is what I see with the council today. It's got an executive that has made many mistakes, and it's got to be changed. And I'm going to come on to that in my first question later on. But what I'm saying to you folks is that leadership is also finding solutions or using the tools that are available to you to resolve a problem. Now, I have been rather litigious throughout my business life, and the reason being is because I see the court as a tool to rectify injustices. And it's not just for my business, but if I set a precedent, everybody else is going to benefit from that precedent which I set. And it's happened on many occasions. I set up the $5 bus that ran between Cathedral Square and Christchurch International Airport, and it was actually $5. Now, under the Public Transport Management Act, Environment Canterbury took me to court. I won on appeal. There were vested interests behind the scenes, with the airport being owned by the Christchurch City Council and also the Red Bus Company. Everybody else benefited from that precedent which I set. And so it goes on. I want to see a district where we have initiatives. We want people who get up and go. I'd like to see a new ski field up in the B&O house. What have I done about it? I have actually gone to DOC, and now there can be 2 concession licenses on that land. That's the sort of thing I do. I do a lot of things behind the scenes, and they never ever come into the public domain. Right, so I'm going to move on to the first question, folks. And my 3 most important priorities are the executive of the council, debt and rates. Now, I'm not a defeatist type of person. I don't accept that you can't do anything about the executive. That's all I hear about from people, wherever I go in the district, about they can't communicate with the council won't communicate with them. It's going to stop. How am I going to achieve that? As far as I'm concerned, there's a chasm between the executive and the governance of this council. And I am going to ensure that the mayor has executive powers. Now, Labor might have done us a bit of a good turn in this respect, because they have they introduced the general power of competency, and you basically do what you like. So I will be seeking a mandate through the other elected members that I have executive power to override the executive. Now, we have it in the United States. At governor levels in the states, the executive can override the governance. So that's why they put it in place. And they have a check and balance system whereby you can appeal any decision made by the president to the Supreme Court. I am proposing something similar. It would be registered in a register where the mayor used this power. And I should add, it should be only probably have to be used sparingly, because the executive will also be getting the message. They better be a bit careful what they're doing. So that would then be able to be debated by the elected members. When it comes to debt, folks, I hear a lot about the current debt that's around about, as my friend here, Mr. Aronson, Scott Aronson said, it's around about 20-something million. I hear about this internal debt. I asked the council about this, and this internal debt was never mentioned to me. But if there's internal debt, what it means is that you might have, say, the airport reserve fund out there, it's got 1.77 million in it. They take $1 million out of it, they charge it at 4%, and then it's got to be, and that at 4%, they're doing it for, say, it's rumoured that it's up to $20 million. So 4% on $20 million, it's going to be $800,000. That's going to be another $145 on your rates, folks. And if that practice is taking place, it's going to stop tomorrow, because that's how Hubbard Finance went bust.
30 seconds.
Right, okay, I haven't got through many yet.
That's the first question.
Okay then, so we now talk about rates. The council can actually, I'm going to have to read this here, can have borrowing costs of debt servicing less than 10% of the planned revenue. So that's all very well. That's the Local Government Act. But a percentage